Hello, everyone. Welcome to a very special episode of Uncanny Tracks. I am Bob in Cascadia. That is Matt in the Southland. Today, we are going to discuss the first four issues of Archie vs. Predator. We are doing this in honor of the fact that a Predator movie just came out. Matt, what did you think of Kill or Be Killed, Predator Killer of Killers, something like that? I already can't remember the title.
Where to begin? I don't even know. It's three separate stories. I only made it through the first story. It just wasn't my cup of tea. Ultra
Well,
violence. Enjoyed the animation was rough, man.
initially we had discussed talking about it as a full episode, but I think the thing that broke me was the animation, which I am not an animation connoisseur, so listeners should take this with a grain of salt, but I thought the animation looked like really laggy video game cutscene animation. So I didn't enjoy that. And yeah, it's three segments, or actually, depending on how you count it, there's four segments, Matt, because spoilers, they bring together the three characters from the main three segments in a fourth segment.
Oh, wow, didn't expect that.
You seem to really dislike the second segment, which is why you tapped on it. I didn't feel that strongly about the second segment. It's the third segment that's really bad. I just want to ask, do you know what the premise of the third segment of Killer of Killers is? It was Viking, the
Sorry.
ninja,
And what's the final one?
World War II pilot.
Oh, World War II pilot.
He's literally dogfighting the Predator, which this is maybe me being a stupid fan, but the Predator in a dogfight, man, an aerial dogfight, that just seems wrong. He's in an advanced Predator fighter jet, I guess.
Okay, so
He's dogfighting a guy in a World War II fighter jet.
that's dumb.
The protagonist is a very, very annoying soy banter character. Traditionally, the type of guy you would see be a very annoying, I would say, white Joss Whedon character, but they made him Latino. And so I guess on the one hand, maybe that's a sign of progress, but on the other hand, it's messed up. Why are you making the Latino be the annoying soy guy?
I'm really glad I didn't watch the rest of this film. That makes me happy.
It,
I'm not too excited you made me read Archie vs. Predator, but I will say it's better than what I was watching on. Here's the other issue I have too, Bob. This movie's on Disney Plus too, because Hulu and Disney are buddies, and it's just all the content ever on one streaming service. But I pay for both apparently. I don't know.
I will say it's pretty funny that I watched Predator on Disney Plus and I'm watching the X-Files on Disney Plus, both of which feel wrong. It feels like this is too adult for Disney
It,
Plus.
it doesn't feel right. I don't understand how they got away with this. They ruined Disney Plus. It wasn't a great thing to begin with, but now it's completely it doesn't have an identity.
This is the way of the streaming platforms, is greater consolidation. They're just trying to bundle stuff, because my impression is that all the streaming platforms except for Netflix are struggling. Whereas before, the idea was, oh yeah, you want a bunch of different separate platforms with separate identities. Hulu is more for adult dramas and network shows, and Disney Plus is more for kids products and IP franchises. Now I think the market is pushing consolidation in the same way that HBO Max absorbed not just HBO, but all the Discovery reality TV show content. But there is the downside of that consolidation. It makes the streamer lose its identity, and it also makes it unwieldy to navigate.
So I'll go and look at the top 10 movies on Disney Plus. Movie number one's Snow White. Movie number two was Lilo and Stitch from 2002. Movie number three was the new Captain America film. And then number four was the Predator film. Why are all these things in one place?
The last thing I'll say about the Predator movie is it's a little ironic that this is basically exactly what I would have wanted the Predator franchise to do. And it's ironic when you get exactly what you want, but it sucks. I don't think it sucks because what I wanted was a bad idea. I just think it sucks because it wasn't done well. Nonetheless, you get that ashes in your mouth taste.
We got a really great Hulu film not too long ago that we covered. Prey was a fantastic film. They can produce good Predator content.
Well, the weird thing, Matt, are you ready for some spoilers?
Sure.
Guess who they find at the end?
No.
Yeah,
We don't
yeah.
tie it all together. We're not making a shared Hulu Predator universe.
Yes, we did. We did. I don't think bringing the protagonist from Prey back into the series is a bad idea. I just don't think this was a good movie. And it's directed by the guy who directed Prey, so it's the same people.
Oh, not just a
They're
really
going
cool
to
short-term film.
they're going to do a live action film that's supposed to come out this fall or this winter, and I presume it's more of a direct sequel and this was a place setting for it, but I don't actually know. I'll still watch the live action one because I like Prey, but I'm not excited for it after this mediocre cartoon movie.
Okay. Well, I look forward to live action too. Live action Predator is always fun. But Bob, let's talk about some comic book Predator. Let's get on the topic here of Archie.
We're talking the first 4 issues of Archie versus Predator. It's written by Alex DeCampi. It's art by Fernando Ruiz. And I wanted to start, Matt, with just the question, do you have nostalgia for Archie? Did you read Archie comics when we were kids?
No, and I found them kind of dated as a kid. Me, they were the comics that your grandparents read in the 50s. It wasn't.
Even though they're set in the eternal present, I do think they are going for a very 1950s, or maybe early 1960s vision of America, even though it's an eternal present.
They were always set in the time period of Happy Days. I felt they were an
Yeah.
extension of Happy Days.
It's ironic that you had no interest in Archie, but you loved Happy Days.
I liked the television medium more so than the print medium in this case.
Archie comics were ubiquitous when we were growing up, and to a lesser extent still are in a lot of grocery stores.
But they don't come in
But I don't
traditional
ever-
comic book shape, though. They come in
Yeah.
digest form. They're these thicker books.
The digest form. Marvel and DC in the early 2000s kept trying to break into the digest form, but it never worked.
Yeah, but I never really read Archie comics, but I was familiar enough with the characters. Just got joke heads. He's got the thing on his head, and Betty and Veronica. I don't think there was ever a cartoon when we were younger.
There were cartoons, but I think they were 60s and 80s, so I don't think they lined up with us or they were being syndicated on Cartoon Network when we were
Right.
kids.
Okay.
Well, and the other thing about the Archie characters that's weird is I actually feel like I don't know all the side characters, but I have a very good understanding of the Archie, Jughead, Betty, Veronica dynamic, which is weird because I don't know that I've ever actually read an Archie comic till I was an adult. And most of the Archie comics I've read as an adult have been weird crossover comics or weird horror comics with Archie, like this one. So it's one of those weird things that despite never reading it still is so ubiquitous in pop culture that I just understand the Archie, Jughead, Betty, Veronica dynamic. I don't know how I came to that knowledge.
Probably by just looking at the covers, Bob.
It's just all in the cover art, huh?
It pretty much tells you the story in most of the covers. And that was the thing too, Bob. I didn't really understand the story of Archie. Is it a soap opera? Is it supposed to be a romance? Is it a teen drama? Is it supposed to be wacky?
Teen comedy with romance elements is I would describe the average Archie story, although stuff like Riverdale is more going into soap opera territory, right?
Right. Which to me, Bob, this first issue that we're about to cover really fits that mold of telling a traditional Archie story with the Predator looming in the background.
One other thing I did want to say is table setting. We're doing a lot of table setting this issue or this episode for Archie versus Predator. Alex DeCampi's the writer here. I actually don't like her stuff very much. I don't know if you saw that terrible Blade Runner cartoon from a couple years ago on Max, but she was a writer on that. Not the writer, but a writer on that. I thought that was a very bad cartoon. But I do like this, and I do like the sequel, Archie versus Predator 2, a lot. And DeCampi also did a Grindhouse series, an anthology series called Grindhouse that I think made 4 trades for Dark Horse about 10 years ago, and I really liked that series. So her other work I don't care for, but Grindhouse and Archie versus Predator I think is quality.
I enjoyed this issue. Now, I did read the sequel to this, Bob. And are we planning on covering the sequel?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, I'll save that for later then.
And then Fernando Ruiz is the artist, and I thought I'd recognize his stuff. I thought I'd read it in other stuff, but I think he's just an Archie artist. I don't think he's ever done anything else in American comics that I could really tell.
And honestly, his art compared to the sequel, this is the traditional Archie look I'm used to seeing. Like this type of art style with Archie.
To start with, issue number 1 is When You Wish Upon a Star. And Matt, the first Predator reference I really caught was Reggie makes a reference to being a sexual Tyrannosaurus. Did you pop for that? I popped for that.
Yeah.
My favorite page or my favorite panel from this first issue is when the whole Archie crew, the whole Archie cast sees a Predator craft, thinks it's a falling star, and wishes upon it. It's a nice presentation and a good comedy of we see what each of the crew wants, right? We get a little insight into their eccentric personalities from their wishes.
The Predator ships are relatively ugly, aren't they?
I hadn't thought about it, and certainly in this smooth, cartoony style of Fernando Ruiz, I think it looks nice. But yeah, I can see where you're coming from.
No, when I say ugly, it's not as in like the art's bad. I'm just saying they're just not attractive ships. Not something you'd want to build out of a model.
Yeah, but there's something about this art style that makes it look so sleek and cartoony.
It's more industrialized when you think of space travel. But I guess that's how the Predators roll.
I do like that there's a weird motif of worshiping a jaguar goddess throughout these 4 issues that's set up here on page 9. I think with the two rich, vaguely incestuous ginger twins are going hunting for a jaguar goddess idol statue. I
Oh,
thought
wait, they're twins? I thought they were a couple.
that's a Jason and Cheryl Blossom. Did you ever read any of the Afterlife with Archie comics?
I did not.
Do you know what Afterlife with Archie is? There was a successful series about 15 years ago called Life with Archie. And we were alluding to in our opening discussion of Archie, the thing about Archie comics is it's the eternal present. The characters never change. The relationships never advance. Archie never definitively gets together with either Betty or Veronica.
Right.
And so they're eternally 16 or whatever. Life with Archie was basically, oh, yeah, let's do a whole series where we show the whole gang becoming adults, entering the
Oh,
world.
wow.
Michael Uslan, who is the guy who always produces the Batman movies, I think he had some involvement in it. I don't think he was the only writer or the main writer, but I think he had some involvement with Life with Archie. But yeah, that was the Life with Archie. And then as you can see, the title After Life with Archie is a play on that. But no, what it actually was an attempt to cash in on Walking Dead. And so it was doing a zombie outbreak story with the Archie cast.
Okay. I knew there was some supernatural element to it that I cannot remember for the life of me. Like, I may have read like a small piece of an issue at one point.
Yeah, and that series came out before this series, Archie versus Predator, and the stuff with Sabrina, it's not exactly the same as Sabrina is in Afterlife with Archie, but it's very influenced by the Afterlife with Archie stuff where it's Sabrina is the one who accidentally unleashes the zombie apocalypse. Does that make sense?
It does. I do believe that I have read some of the Sabrina stuff based upon your suggestion.
It's a weird thing, right? Because the Afterlife with Archie series was very successful, but they only ever put out 2 trades worth of it. I think because the main writer got busy, he was also the main writer and producer of Riverdale. And I think he got busy with Riverdale and never went back to Afterlife with Archie, if that makes sense. Even though they didn't follow up on it, they did a lot of weird spinoffs. And one of those was The Chilling Adventures of Sabrina, which also only got 2 trades for whatever weird reason, because the guy, well, I think it's the same guy, got busy with the Riverdale show and the Netflix Sabrina show. I haven't seen the Netflix Sabrina show, but from what I understand, it's a pretty direct adaptation of that Chilling Adventures of Sabrina comic released to cash in on Afterlife with Archie. Does that make sense?
I just don't like them remaking Sabrina the Teenage Witch. We'll never have a better version than what was on ABC in our houses on Friday nights.
You know she's originally an Archie comics character, right?
I know, Bob. I know, but
Okay.
I'm talking about on film screen. We'll never have a better. What's her name? Melissa.
I don't know, man.
Oh, Bob, come on. You never watched Sabrina the Teenage Witch?
I watched it a little, but I don't remember it enough to know the actress's name.
Melissa Joan Hart, Bob. Everyone knows Melissa Joan Hart.
Oh, I did not know Melissa Joan Hart, man. I apologize. So to bring this full circle, I bring all this up to say they did other spinoffs, or not spinoffs, but cash-ins on Afterlife with Archie. So they did Chilling Adventures of Sabrina. They did Jughead as a werewolf.
Oh
They
my
did
God.
Veronica as Vampirella. And they did a sort of The Omen evil child Satan movie with the 2 Blossom twins. I believe it was called Blossom 666. So sorry, that's a long way to come back around, but to come back around about the creepy rich incest of the Blossom twin. There we go.
Dang, Bob. Yeah, that is a long way to go. But yeah, they're pretty gross. I really thought there were a couple, Bob. Freaks me out.
Well, Matt, because of this, I already said my favorite panel, and then I wanted to guess at what I thought your favorite panel was in the first
Go right
issue.
ahead, Bob. What's my favorite
And
panel?
so I thought your favorite panel was on page 20, where we see the Predator holding up the Blossom twins' skull and spines.
That's pretty disgusting. And I will say that's probably the best panel in this. I always love the Predator's trademark thing is like ripping their skulls out with their spines still intact.
The last thing I wanted to say about this first issue is it's very funny that on the one hand, you know, it's the opening of the Predator meeting the Archie cast. But on the other hand, major subplot is Betty and Veronica getting in a fight and Veronica breaking Betty's nose. And then Veronica apologizing and being, don't worry, mommy has a great plastic surgeon. She'll fix your nose.
Tell the listeners to understand how this starts off. They're going on a spring break trip. The Jughead wins by opening a bag of chips in the first page. So just in case you're wondering how they get where they're supposed to be, that's how.
That's a very hoary trope of the Archie comics. Whenever they want them in a new location, it's Jughead wins a food contest to get them there.
Betty and Veronica get in a fight. Betty breaks your nose.
Well, Matt, to go ahead on to issue 2, To Live and Die in a Small Town, were you surprised in the opening on page 2 about how gory the local diner owner's head exploding was? Oh,
A big old splut is the word they use to describe the explosion of his head. Splut.
and this promptly sets up what I would have to say is my favorite gag in several pages of this issue. I think the best page is on page 5, where we see Pop Tate was in the act of cutting a chocolate cake when the Predator pops his melon. And so Jughead has the chocolate cake and it's topped by Pop's eyeballs and brain matter, but Jughead is still eating on the cake early in the issue, which is very gross and very funny.
Gross, Bob. This is so gross. I didn't catch this. Now I'm seeing it. Thanks. He's
Well, Matt,
literally
what
eating
is
around Pop's eye on page 5.
just sitting on top of the cake like a sprinkle or like a
Yeah.
candle?
Also, the copious amounts of blood they include in this too, crazy. Anytime anybody dies, they make sure everyone gets sprayed with blood and they're covered in blood the next couple of pages.
Which is also interesting because it's done very much in this cartoony Archie style. And Fernando Ruiz does a very good job of making it the blood and the gore look appropriately cartoony in the Archie style. But yeah, the total effect is surreal.
It doesn't hurt. It's just red. But it's a cartoon. Everything's going to be okay.
Well, Matt, as we've already established, a Sabrina the Teenage Witch 1990s purist, what did you think of this version of Sabrina?
It doesn't look like Melissa Joan Hart, but looks more like the character that I've seen in the Archie comics.
I don't know if she does. Is this what old Sabrina looks like in the
I
old
think
Archie
so,
comics?
yeah. She had like the freckles on the face. That was the difference. And she's always been blonde. She's got the outfit itself. It's
Yeah,
witchy.
although
I
she's
don't know.
like ice blonde, ash blonde here,
Yeah.
white blonde. I thought this was maybe an off version because I assumed Chilling Adventures of Sabrina was coming out around this time and they wanted to like differentiate it a little more. But maybe I'm wrong. As we've established, I don't know that much about these comics either.
I don't know jack about him either, Bob. So we're the blind leading the blind here.
Oh,
Yes,
that
Bob, she was blonde. She did have the freckles. Yes, this looks just like the Sabrina from the old school.
did she dress in this full on white?
Oh, heck no. She wore the same crap that Veronica and them wore.
And the hair, was it that white?
It's the same color.
Oh,
Yeah,
that
I
is
think that's to make her look different from Betty.
Yeah, I guess that makes sense since Betty is so prominent. Well, the other thing I wanted to note about her is on page 9, she puts on this very creepy bull skull hat, and it makes her. Do you remember Hela, Thor's sister, who's death in Norse mythology?
Yes, hello.
Makes her look like Hela, I thought.
It's got that ritual, satanic ritual looking mask.
Sabrina gets pretty quickly dispatched, right? As does poor Salem, Matt. Were you a little sad that you lost Salem? I know he's your favorite from the 90s show.
Yeah, man, he just vaporizes the cat, and then his fur and bones all get scattered over Sabrina's doll collection, which
I'd
disturbing.
missed that detail about the doll collection, but yeah, you're exactly right. It's very disturbing. And then I wanted to see, did this resonate for you at all with Veronica later in this issue? I can't remember if it's the blood of Sabrina or Salem or both, but Veronica, her face is just covered in blood. She's wearing the crimson mask. This really made me think of AEW women's wrestling.
The blood is specifically from when the Predator rips Sabrina's skull from her body, because it says splurt and shoots right into Veronica's face.
So, Matt, we already established that my favorite panel was Jughead eating around the brain and eye matter on his chocolate cake from Pop Tate. But I was going to guess, was your favorite gag in issue number 2 when Veronica was enthusiastic about inheriting Sabrina's collection of turtlenecks?
No, Bob. My favorite panel from this issue is actually going to be, because that's just freaky.
I thought it would be too real for you, man. I thought it would be too triggering.
I'm good.
Salem getting vaporized, even though I went with the very gory destruction of the Blossom twins for you in the first issue. I thought Salem getting dismembered would be too sad
good.
for you.
So, Bob, I do have one question though about Archie. Are these cheesecake changing scenes part of the Archie comics as well?
I would assume that's more a nod to horror movie tropes than classic Archie comics tropes. I haven't read a lot of classic Archie comics. I could be wrong.
It's just odd because there were two separate scenes.
I think one of those in issue number 3 is what I thought was your favorite.
No favorites.
Not because of the cheesecake necessarily. The last 3 things I wanted to say about issue number 2. 1, We sort of have a running debate in this issue between Veronica and Betty, where Betty is a fantasy fan and Veronica is a science fiction fan. And so they have exchanges like Betty's asking, why are ninjas fine but not magic? And Veronica's just, because science. And Betty's just, whatever, Charles Darwin.
Yeah.
That really made me laugh.
Yeah.
And, in this issue, Matt is definitely a Veronica, it turns out.
Not my favorite with the magic.
I didn't know, Matt. I didn't know that Riverdale High, I didn't know their mascot was the Bulldogs. That was a surprise to me.
I didn't have a clue.
Why are they stealing Yale and University of Georgia Thunder? It's a real question. And then the last thing I wanted to point out, which does set up things that we get into later in the series, is that Kevin Keller's dad, who's in the military, reveals that the government knows that this particular predator who is stalking the Archie gang is a teenage predator, which I just thought was a very funny reveal. Number 3 is Full Metal Varsity Jacket. And, in the tradition of me going with an early panel, my favorite panel was on page 3. There's a lot of this issue Jughead spins in drag, and I think it's pretty funny. I don't know if in our current woke times, if contemporary readers would be okay with Jughead being in drag, being played with laughs, but there is a really funny moment early in this issue where Jughead, covered in blood in drag, is saying he's wearing all that's left of his friends. And I just thought that was so funny. Initially, I wasn't going to highlight it for woke reasons, but it was just too funny to not highlight.
Well, Bob, if that offends people, you know what shouldn't offend people? My favorite panel, Bob, Jughead's spine and dismembered head all up in a vending machine.
Jughead's head and spine in the vending machine, which is where you would expect Jughead to end, I guess. And I do just want to say, listeners, I did call that. I did predict that would be Matt's favorite panel.
How Jughead ended up in the machine, he was using the obsidian knife to steal food from the vending machine.
If you have an obsidian knife, that's what it's for. Another of my favorite running gags in this series is Betty just saying the most disturbing things randomly without a lot of prompting. In issue 3, you have this moment of Betty crying, and then she's reflecting about the time her grandmother ran over the Yorkie dog with a lawnmower. She's just, how is there so much blood for such a little dog?
Gross. It's disturbing.
I don't want to spoil anything for the listeners, but your favorite character has this kind of signature moment on page 14 in issue 3.
He really wants to be Archie. He's got his own Archie robot mech thing that he can wear. Well, it's not really a mech, it's a suit. An Iron Man Archie suit.
This is Dilton, who's the nerd inventor character of the cast. And he really wants to be Archie. And he has these really creepy, really metatextual things that he says to Veronica. Don't you realize, Veronica, everything is Archie always.
Yeah. Everything's Archie always.
Everything is Archie always. Matt, did you watch, speaking of Predator movies, did you watch, I think it was 2018's The Predator?
I don't think so.
So 2018's The Predator, the previous Predator movie before Prey, was a pretty good movie. I had a good time with it until something happens in the end credit scene that's so unspeakable that I can never watch the film again.
Ruin it for everyone.
Well, they should not see it. But I do just want to say that film owes Alex DeCampi and Fernando Ruiz money, man, because they predicted it several years before. I think this came out in 2015. And that movie came out in 2018. They totally nailed it. The lead of The Predator, who I think is also the lead in the RoboCop reboot, he gets taken into a secret room and they show him an Iron Man suit that he can use to fight the Predator. That's the post credits.
Oh, wow. So this came out in 2015. They stole it from this?
If I were going to be the lawyer for Fox/Disney/ABC, I would say that that's a really obvious idea, and you don't have to do this or it be proprietary to get there. But still, DeCampi and Ruiz got there 3 years first. And theirs is actually funny, whereas in the end credit scene to the Predator movie, it's just horrific. Moving on to issue number 4, did you appreciate the Josie and the Pussycats cameo on page 4?
I've always been a fan of Josie and the Pussycats. That was the big thing on Cartoon Network where they kept showing reruns of all these Hanna-Barbera cartoons. Do you remember that time?
I do, and it's interesting because when we were kids, I was not very familiar with the Archie characters at all, but I was pretty familiar with Josie and the Pussycats from the cartoon reruns and from Sabrina from the episodes I did see. And I had no idea that either were Archie characters, right? And we're in the same shared universe as Archie.
Right.
Yeah. And so when I got older and I realized it was all the same company, all the same shared universe, I was really surprised.
What'd you think about the picture of Veronica with the Punisher, Bob?
Well, Matt, that actually sets up something I do want us to cover after we finish Archie versus Predator. I do want us to cover Archie versus Punisher.
Okay. I could see that being a fun gag.
It is a fun little gag. Matt, can I ask a personal question about your family?
Sure.
So in this issue, we see that Veronica, her family, is super rich, right? They have this magical med bed, which will become an important plot point. Does anybody in your family buy into this weird idea that seems to have been inherited from Star Trek, that there are these magic beds that will magically heal you through advanced science fiction technology of almost any ailment, that all you have to do is lie in the bed and it will scan you and fix you? And these exist already, but it's just because of the Democrats and the liberals and the hippies and the government that won't let us have them. Anybody in your family buy into that?
Bob, I can say that not a single person in my family buys into anything like that. I don't know. I can see why people would believe that, though, with some of the technology that we seem to think we have. And
Well, I'm not just talking about like your immediate nuclear family. I'm talking about
no,
like cousins, about your
oh,
wife's family.
I don't really talk to them, so no, I don't think they believe these actual med beds exist. I've never heard this specific conspiracy theory. Science fiction does a fantastic job of making that seem something that's going to happen one day, and I don't foresee it, honest to God. But science fiction paints a very pretty picture of the future that looks pretty bleak to me.
At least one family member who I don't want Matt to guess on air, but I'm sure Matt can guess. But at least one family member of mine believes in this. And while another family member was dying of cancer, was imploring a third family member to ask the doctor about the med beds.
Oh, wow. This is the idea that always comes to my head. There's this special light in the Justice League, purple light or something that they shine on you that can heal you.
The purple ray. That's a Wonder Woman thing. They have
Yes.
it at Paradise Island in the Silver Age.
The purple ray from Wonder Woman, that it reminds me of that because you see, when I was at the dentist, they use this light to actually seal your tooth or whatever.
Oh, wow.
To me, it sounded like the purple light that Wonder Woman thing used. I was just telling him about it. It's so weird. Anyway, I could see how people would get confused, though, thinking one thing is another thing is another thing. I don't know, Bob.
Well, I wasn't thinking about the purple ray, but you bring this up. This is an old fantasy in science fiction and fantasy and adventure literature, and it probably you can connect it up to certain like myth archetypes too, right?
Right.
And then there's also the thing of what you're saying about, on the one hand, I'm sure the medical designers and the dental designers are guided by what would make it function.
Right.
On some level, they're probably also guided by, oh, we want to make this appear like this thing.
Exactly. That's what I'm thinking. Someone has seen somewhere, they've seen an article where they've talked about, could this be the future? And then they have a picture of this medical bed that, oh, this is the future of everything. It keeps up with all your stats and all that. But that doesn't mean it's actually healing you.
I also want to be clear, too. It's not just that this family member of mine has this incorrect belief that they got from mythical archetypes in pop culture, although that's certainly part of it. But it's a part of a broader culture of conspiracy theories that is involved with QAnon. And granted, the medbed conspiracy, I think, predates QAnon, but it's a broader conspiracy theory that people on YouTube and other platforms push, and it's become one minor part of the broader plethora of conspiracy theories we could call QAnon.
Well, Bob, I just hope one day our med beds can be next to each other so we can continue these conversations.
I look forward to holding hands across the medbed aisle, Matt, until one of us thinks it's gay and stops. So, Matt, my guess at your favorite panel was on page 9, where we have another of these cheesecake scenes of Betty changing. But specifically, I thought the fact that we see some crows perving on Betty changing was pretty funny and likely to amuse you.
No, Bob, my favorite panel's on the next page, and it's when Betty answers the door to the Predator, and she has an Uzi in her hand.
Are you sure it's Betty with the Uzi, or is it Veronica?
Veronica. I get them mixed up because they both love Archie so much.
Well, that's a good recovery, Matt. See, the only reason I remembered that it was Veronica is my favorite, and that's where we see Veronica jack the Uzi before answering the door with it to get the Predator. So, Matt, the med bed gets out of control. The lodge med bed goes out of control, and it turns Archie into Arnold Schwarzenegger. Were you surprised?
It gets huge and starts
Gets
carrying a
jacked.
battle axe.
And then, did you like the twist ending, Matt, where in fulfillment of Dilbert's prophecy in issue number 3 of everything is Archie, comma, always, we have Archie is killed in his Arnold form, but Betty and Veronica just used the med bed to turn Teen Predator into Archie.
It was actually quite brilliant. So when we start the sequel, I was, okay, they're not going to continue this. This is just going to be another story. No, they do, guys. So this does carry over.
I have read the sequel, but I don't remember it at all.
Yeah, well, it totally carries over, which I thought was interesting. I'll have a little more criticism of the sequel than I do this book. This, to me, is what I remember Archie being. It's goofy. You're not supposed to take it seriously. I mean, come on, it's funny. But then the sequel get a little too serious for me.
And the sequel is definitely written by Alex DeCampi.
The art style's different.
It's a different artist.
I'm not sure.
We'll find out next week. And then the last thing I just wanted to ask, did you take a look at the backups that were collected in the trade?
I did, yes. Oh, going back, Bob, they have different artists. The artist for Archie versus Predator 2 is a guy by the name of Robert Hack.
Oh, that name is familiar, but I don't know what he's done. Okay. Well, I look forward to seeing how it's different. And yeah, especially since I read these both around when they came out, which is why I wanted to go back to them on the occasion of the Predator cartoon, but I just don't remember the sequel at all. Well, so Matt, as the backups, it's funny. We have the first one we have is the Hellboy and Sabrina backup, which is actually drawn in the style of that Chilling Adventures of Sabrina comic, which I think you read some on my recommendation, right?
I did, yes. And this art style is more the style you're going to see in the sequel.
Okay, I guess they were maybe trying to go, because I think this is not exactly the same, but also somewhat similar to, I think it's Francesco Francavilla as the artist on Afterlife with Archie.
Yes.
And so I think they're maybe just going for that. That's well. And so we have Hellboy and Sabrina. And then were you excited that there was a Mask crossover here? We have the little Archie gang crossing over with the Mask.
Yeah, he had fireworks in his pants, so they take a broom and hit him in the head with it, and then the mask falls off. It's a very complex story.
And I wanted to ask, did you ever read Mind Management?
I don't have a clue what that is.
Dark Horse has had the Predator license since time immemorial, although Marvel now has it since they bought Fox out, right? And so this was published with Dark Horse. And so Mind Management, Mask, Hellboy, and then Finder, the next one, are all Dark Horse comics. And so Mind Management was a trippy, somewhat Lost inspired, but a little more artistic than that spy series that came out about 10 years ago from Dark Horse. I liked it at the time, but don't remember it very well.
Okay. Yeah, then we got this Josie and the Pussycats.
And I've always heard Finder is good, but I've never read it. It's supposed to be like a trippy science fiction book that's written and drawn by a woman. And so I think a little more relationship focused than a lot of comics are, since comics are still somewhat dominated by men, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it's like they were giving you a sample in the end there, like a sampler of what else they have to offer.
Yeah, although they do a good job, I think, the appropriate art styles, right? They actually have the writer-artist do the mind management gag, and then I think that's the artist who draws Finder. Although the joke is Finder is a black and white comic, and so to have the artist do the Finder page, but then to have it in this lush Archie colors is interesting.
I will say this to the listeners. If you do decide to read this, make sure you take a look at the variant covers at the end. They go through a whole gallery. Every one of them is hilarious. They're all just equally funny. Archie's covers are what made Archie memorable, which is why I think you learned so much about Archie from the covers just by looking at them at the grocery store.
I'm seeing the guy who you said did Archie versus Predator 2, Robert Hack. He's got at least one variant cover back here.
Yeah. Well, there's one hilarious one about Tim Seeley where they're on the beach and Betty is using a jump rope like a garrote and choking out the predator.
Oh, I see it. While Veronica just does her nails, ignores the whole thing.
Good stuff.
That's really funny. Who was your favorite character overall from this series?
Oh, man. If I had to pick a favorite character, I was going to give it to Dilton just because the whole Archie robot thing was hilarious to me.
Yeah.
I like his plan.
Much better executed than the Predator 2018, right?
Right.
I mean, as ever, Matt, for me, it's very hard to choose between Betty and Veronica, although maybe I guess I lean more to Betty since I've mostly dated Betty's. But I think Veronica is slightly funnier in this, although both are super, super funny in this. And it's very funny that, especially in issue 3 and 4, it's already sort of this, but especially in issue 3 and 4, it really becomes a Betty and Veronica comic, not an Archie comic. And I also really like how Alex DeCampi gives a fair amount of lesbian subtext between the two. It's very funny.
Oh, wait for it in the second volume, Bob.
I'm excited. I'm excited to revisit it.
Yes.
Well, Matt, I was just assuming we would rank these together, Archie versus Predator and Archie versus Predator 2. It sounds from hearing you talk about the sequel that are they different enough that you want to rank them separately, or do you still want to rank them together? What's your thinking on that?
Let's rank them separately.
Okay, you want to rank them separately. All right. So, Matt, we got a 15-item list. John Hickman, Fantastic Four, is at the top. AJ Lieberman, Gotham Knights, is at the bottom at number 15. Where are you thinking about putting this?
I'm considering putting it between the Devin Grayson and Scott Beatty Gotham Knights.
What? That's all?
I wouldn't put it above Suicide Squad Get Joker. It's not better than Azzarello. Really? You like this a lot more than I did. Where would you put it if you had to choose?
I could see it going a lot of places. The highest place I could see putting it would be as the new number 5 in between Boy Wonder and Batman City of Madness. I want everything above Hush, but I like this more than Broken City. I definitely like it better than the Paul Dini detective run. I could see an argument that maybe I should read City of Madness for a third time. I could see an argument that that's more cohesive and accomplished than this. Although I can also see an argument that this is more cohesive and accomplished than City of Madness. I definitely wouldn't put it above Junie Ba's Boy Wonder, but that's the hard ceiling. It could go a bit lower.
How about we put it at the new number 5? I'm good with that. But then next week when we do the sequel, you let me put it wherever I want to.
So you wanted it as the new number 14 originally?
Yeah, new number 14. Because I like Devin Grayson's run better than Beatty's.
I guess I'll accept that because I don't remember. I'd read this and remembered liking it a lot, but didn't remember the specifics, but it lives up to my general high opinion of it. I read Archie vs. Predator 2 and just don't remember it at all enough to have an opinion. I don't remember disliking it. I think I liked it, but I just don't remember anything about it at all.
All right. One thing we could do, if I moved it up to the new number 11 and put it just past Suicide Squad Get Joker.
No, this is better than Suicide Squad Get Joker, in my opinion.
Okay.
I'm willing to live with this as the new number 5, and then I'll give you total discretion. Although I obviously reserve the right to complain and whine about it.
Oh, yeah, you can complain and whine all you want.
Yeah, but I give you total discretion for the sequel.
Okay, so new number 5, that works. Archie versus
Predator. And it is good in the sense that we finally break up our pair of Batman graphic novels. Well, listeners, thank you for joining us on this journey of Archie versus Predator. We'll be back in 1 week or so with Archie versus Predator 2, and we'll be back in 2 weeks or so with Archie versus Punisher.
All right, thanks for listening.